Hello and welcome everyone to another thrilling episode of the Pathfinders podcast. I am Tree0311, and over here to my left I have my partner in crime. hmm Um, yeah, so if this is your first time in on the podcast, we're recording it live right now, and then it'll get posted to YouTube. Nazeris will do all the editing, break it up into chapters, make it more digestible, as well as put things out into clips. But we're back onto our regularly scheduled content. Thank goodness, finally. Yeah, yeah. Well, the regular schedule is not there. The content is regular. Yeah, where we're gonna have a spectrum pulse tonight, followed by scanner anomalies. And what we do here on Pathfinders is we do deep dives into things regarding Star Citizen in order to help unmuddy the waters. With Star Citizen's development in the game, because it's been going on for quite a while. There's a lot of it's not misinformation, but there's a lot of information out there, and it's really hard to parse out. And what we always like to say is the information is nebulous, and so here at Pathfinders, we help navigate our way through all the nebulous information surrounding Star Citizen and its development. A little bit of lore, a little bit of Star Citizen development, and a lot of just research. And so what we do is we take questions from the community for the Spectrum Pulse, the keep our pulse on the spectrum, or with scanner anomalies we have things that we're interested in, and basically we take those questions and we go and we find all the information about them that we can, and present the information to you in an organized way with all the sources in the show notes, so that way you can be informed about what's going on, with whatever it is that we're covering. And so today, the Spectrum Pulse, pardon me, just finished dinner, is going to be on the Legionnaire, because the ship recently released, um, and there's a lot of, I'd say, almost confusion surrounding the Legionnaire and surrounding boarding.
Which Legionnaire?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And if anyone caught it, yes, I realized my mic was muted for the whole intro, and yes, I did forget to start the recording.
Oh, no.
So, yeah.
Well, that's my bad. We're out of practice. I forgot to remind you to start the recording.
Yeah. Well, I should have remembered. And you know what? It's a normal episode, so it wouldn't be normal if I didn't forget to start the stupid recording.
That's going to be our catchphrase, is a Pathfinder snafu. Situation normal, all effed up.
Yes. That is the constant distress beacon we are sending out.
Yeah. So the Spectrum Pulse, we like to come up with clever names for our segments, and this one's going to be called Bored Out of Your Mind, talking about the Anvil Legionnaire and boarding operations. And Nazeris, you mentioned the numbers behind my name. The numbers are actually my former military occupational specialty. When I was in the Marines in the early mid 2000s, I was a 0311, 0311 rifleman, an infantryman, as well as a 0331 machine gunner. And I was also a foreign weapons instructor. And so I basically taught people how to shoot weapons that didn't belong to us. And,
Just so if you pick up any weapon, like they'll know how to use it.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. In the real world, it isn't like in Halo, where you just pick up an alien, a foreign weapon, and you just automatically know how to use it.
Yeah,
it doesn't work that way.
Makes sense.
Things are different.
Yeah, they're not as intuitive as they are in video games.
Yeah. The needler just doesn't. Oh yeah, that makes sense. That's totally how I use this.
Yeah. The one that I think actually would be a good comparison between real life and in a Halo game is the sword. because the sword is built for the elite hand, which is it splits because I think do they have two
Yeah,
dominant
they've got the
fingers?
weird
Yeah.
two or
So
three, I forget.
handling that as a human would be very, very different than a traditional sword, especially something like a lightsaber or something where it's a stick
Mm-hmm.
or you have handle. So there actually need to be some form of training to get that grip on the sword to actually be able to use it.
I have to take a look at that sometime. But so when I was in the Marines, and this is why I'm such a nerd for the UE Marines, is because I still am a Marine at heart, even though I'm actually a soldier in the Army National Guard as well. Um, but one of the things I did, I was in a um, what's called a raider company. And so we specialized in small boat warfare special operations. And so if you've ever watched those like Navy SEAL commercials and you see the Navy SEALs riding around on those little rubber boats, looking all super cool and sneaky squirrel, that's what my unit did. And so I actually got to partake in a lot of boarding training, because sometimes we would be, using our boats to insert from our amphibious assault ships over the horizon at night onto a um, enemy-held, in training coast. But we also used our boats for boarding operations. Um, and because we were trained in boarding operations on our boats, we also got trained in boarding operations via aircraft. Um, and so I got to train for these sorts of operations a lot and actually perform them live, off the Horn of Africa on several pirate-held vessels back in 2006. So when I heard and saw that we were getting a dedicated boarding vessel for Star Citizen, I immediately got very excited, because boarding operations are very complex, but it's something within Star Citizen that has a lot of lore supporting the use of boarding, um, as well as, for me, just a mechanic that would to me is a lot cooler having a craft that's dedicated for it. And so I instantly became intrigued. And so the Legionnaire really, even though it's a dedicated, sorry,
Don't worry, I'll have plenty of questions after you get done with your stuff about different boarding things. Now, I'm my brain's just going off on all these different questions I want to ask about the relationship between in-game and or real life and Legionnaire, and what stuff they should put in, or what stuff should have been put in. So
it'll be, and it'll be really interesting because it's just a concept right now, and we know concepts change.
especially if there's
Sometimes
really loud people in in the community.
yeah, and for a concept on a fighter probably isn't going to change too much, but a concept on something that is new and different and not well explored or fleshed out like this for Star Citizen and CIG could change quite a bit. Um, so I made a bunch of notes regarding the Legionnaire, after we got the actual concept information, com link, and as I also reviewed we'll talk about the Q&A here, before we um, use it as a segue into NASA's scanner anomaly. But I really like the Legionnaire because not only is it a dedicated boarding ship, but it also fills the role of a small drop ship. You've got it definitely fulfills that role as a small drop ship compared to, say, the Valkyrie or something else. I'm sorry, beer went down the wrong tube.
Oh, jeez.
Pardon me. Because it is smaller, if you compare its size to the Valkyrie, it's a lot smaller, but it still has good sized VTOLs. I'm anticipating the Legionnaire to have a really good thrust to mass ratio, um, especially considering it doesn't have the large um, back end of the Valkyrie, the badonkadonk. Underneath that sort of tail, just like on the uh, the Pelican in Halo, there's nothing. It's just sort of empty.
Oh man,
And so
When I saw the
Go ahead.
shape of the Legionnaire, I'm like, oh my gosh, they did it. They made the ship that carries the tank on the back. And then when it came out to dropship, like, you ruined it. This shape had one purpose. One purpose. It was to carry the tank. Because I'm like,
Oh,
it's
are
a
you?
pelican.
Yeah.
It's the shape of a pelican. Because I saw some leaks before we actually knew what the ship was. I'm like, it's the perfect shape. And they just
That's something I've been advocating for a while, is to have a Valkyrie variant, kind of like the Pelican. Remove that vehicle bay and maybe even the troop compartment, in order to have some sort of attachment for, um, like a heavy vehicle, like
Mhm.
the
Yeah, like the
like the
Legionnaire
Spartan,
would be
like the
perfect for that.
yeah, if it was bigger, obviously.
Is it not big enough for a tank?
No, it's itty bitty. It's itty bitty. Um, but that itty bittiness, the smallness of the Legionnaires is one of its strengths,
Mm-hmm.
because it has those 4 VTOLs. It should have really good maneuverability, um, and responsiveness and speed within atmosphere, within gravity, as a dropship should, far more so than the Valkyrie because of its size. And so,
If it dropped the personnel transport, it should be all fit.
yeah,
If we
but
go
it's,
over
the
to
thrust to mass ratio should be really good, and that's why I'm really interested in it, because it makes it more like a smaller helicopter. I was doing yard work all day, and
oh jeez,
I must have some dust or something.
we have a size
But
comparison up on the screen now. So
it's like, comparing a smaller helicopter to a much larger one in terms of maneuverability and ability to change position. And so that makes the Legionnaire, potentially a really optimal, vehicle for insertion, and extraction of small squads, um, onto any planet, but especially, into areas, that are sort of confined spaces. You've got, narrow canyons, large, caves. When we get planets in the future, um, with, thick jungle canopies, and, um,
I definitely
small
hope
landing zones and stuff. Um,
destruction on trees will be a thing that they actually look into. So when something crashes
oh
in the
yeah.
forest, we get that shearing of the trees.
hmm And I know they mentioned destructible, flora, fauna, and stuff, and hopefully that extends all the way up to the large trees, not just the bushes and stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's not just
but
oh, it's broken, piff, gone.
hmm and that small size, really, should make it a valuable insertion craft, for challenging atmospheric conditions. It's a bit more aerodynamic, but also, maybe heavy gravity, all sorts of different things. Um, and I think that makes it really versatile. Yeah, it only carries a squad of 8, but for a lot of the content in the game that we're going to have, a squad of 8 is going to be just fine. That's a good amount of people, and
Yeah,
it lacks, as long as depending on need, maybe if you need, the what sort of resistance you're expecting. Bringing escorts is, never a bad idea. It could be very helpful, because the
I think it was
Legionnaire doesn't
also
have.
I think it was also Newify that was talking about when the steel came out. Like that is too many people in one ship for the steel. So having multiple Legionnaires is a better option than having a Legionnaire with twice the amount of people.
Mhm.
Because
That is.
you can protect the people inside a lot better if it's two different ships instead of
Yeah,
16 people in one ship.
the that is basically the premise for, large scale landing operations. You are expecting to take casualties. You are expecting to lose craft. You want to spread your landing force around. That's why the Valkyrie was developed. Um, it's literally part of the lore. It for the same reasons we do that now, where you spread, an entire battalion of Marines across an entire company of landing vehicles. Because if you lose one or two, the mission goes on,
Mm.
versus putting everybody in one basket.
Yeah.
that basket loses a couple of thrusters and goes splat, then the mission's over.
I
We
hope they
lose.
do have at least one scene in Squadron where you see probably not Legionnaire. That ship is probably sailed. They probably have all the ships they need for a Squadron now. But
Yeah.
I want to see, maybe some player can recreate it when we get the Legionnaire in game and server meshing, which is a large scale landing force landing and setting up a front, spreading across the C2, the Valkyrie, and the Legionnaire, and all of these landing and trying to what's the word for getting the people out of the ship?
Disembark.
Disembark, and all of its troops and vehicles disembarked. Like, that would be an incredible scene to watch.
I'm totally anticipating that for the wouldn't be the sequel, but the single player campaign first person shooter oriented one for the six platoon Phantoms of the UE Marines.
Yeah.
They're the Marine equivalent of Squadron 42.
And because we deal in factual stuff here, nothing's been announced about another game.
Yeah.
We're just saying we like it to be the story of the 6th platoon, and I'm on board with this. After the 6th platoon, the only place to go after that for a third game, third story mode, would be the Outlaws saga. Like,
there's a lot of different routes that could take too.
Right.
Yeah.
And
the smuggler, the bounty hunter,
And like I'd want them, because Star Citizen is the sandbox. So I'd want them to do, you are this person. A very, like, you are this person storytelling. So you have to do you're this, you have these set of skills, go do these things. Because Star Citizen is kind of, well, and its story modes are very open-ended, it's more likely to be you are a outlaw and you deal in bounty hunting or illegal trade somewhere in that kind of vague area of just lawlessness. So it can give you, like, hey, your mission is to go get that thing. Go do however you want. So it's kind of like distilling the outlaw gameplay of Star Citizen into a cinematic kind of experience, which would be insanely difficult.
But yeah, that's the versatility of the Legionnaire, because of its size, and what I'm assuming should be good maneuverability, due to that thrust to mass ratio, is really a strength compared to the larger dropships, especially given the frequency with which you'll need to insert a team of that size. So it's a really, I think, a well-designed craft for the small dropship role, on top of being a dedicated boarding ship, and having being able to do both, because it's got the ramp that just drops out of the back end, just like the other dropships. It can rapidly deploy that squad. Having the ability for the ship to do both, perform both roles is really valuable. And especially at the, I call it the starter dropship because of the pricing. War Bond, $100 with LTI, credit at $120. That's an absolute steal when we're so used to steel, STEAL, not steel like the Drake Cutlass steel. But when we're used to the whole dropship tax thing, which I think is, for good reason, because I think that CIG puts emphasis on dropships because they know how valuable they're going to be to their gameplay, and players don't really appreciate it just yet. I think it's a giant signal, but that's a lot of value considering the capabilities that it brings to the table. Being heavily armored but small and maneuverable, able to insert a small team either onto the ground or onto an enemy ship. That's a pretty dang good value.
Yeah, we really won't know what moving stuff means until we get permadeath.
Yep.
And when we need to either get people to the ground or stuff to the next hab, and we can't just backspace, we can't just do a whole bunch of stuff that we do now, and inventories become so much more persistent, it will take on new meaning. And CIG knows it. CIG has been planning all of their ships.
Yeah.
From at least 2015, 2017 onward for the end game, not the game we have now. And the Legionnaire and the Liberator are both excessive examples of those two principles. Like, they know what we're going to need when the game is done, not what we need
And they're
now.
dropping giant hints in our laps as to what that will be. And
Seriously.
people are, oh, I don't see why I would ever use this. You know, oh, come on. Come on.
Because the game's it's not a solo game, and you will need buddies, and you will need, probably, if you're doing anything worthwhile, like doing anything worth doing in the starter session, is going to take friends. And that is going to become, hopefully, very excessively apparent when server mission comes in. So a bunker mission may just need a Legionnaire of people, because you won't just have the 8 guys in the bunker or the 8 guys at a time on the wave bunkers. You'll have the entrenched people in the front door on top of the ground. You'll have the barricade people inside, and then you'll have the reinforcements when you come out of the bunker. It's not just going to be a run in and all the ads all bugged out already, so you just run in, shoot them, and leave. It's going to get difficult, and they are planning for a lot more NPCs to be around everywhere.
And the other thing is the reason that dropships like the Valkyrie and the Legionnaire and even the Cutlass have VTOLs is because VTOLs are going to matter. The maneuverability and ability to maneuverability at slow speeds and the ability to hover, the ability to go into VTOL mode and brake when you're coming screaming in from on high in order to break your speed before you don't want to splat on the ground slow down and then flare like that and come to a land and rapidly deploy troops. You're not going to be able to do that with other ships. That's the whole point. And CIG, maybe you haven't read it, but CIG has made it clear multiple times about how VTOLs will work and what the advantages of VTOLs will be. And so it's going to be a thing. You're not just going to come in with your ship that isn't equipped appropriately and expect to be successful. There's advantages to these things. Moving on more with the size, the Legionnaire is a extra small ship. It fits within the extra small hangar. They confirmed it in the Q&A, and so that is a huge bit of news, because that means it was designed specifically to fit within ships with an extra small or larger hangar. So it's going to fit in an Odyssey. It's going to fit in a BMM, a Band of Merchantmen. And most importantly to me, it's going to fit in the hangar of a Polaris. And I don't think that this is a coincidence at all that it was made to fit in a Polaris, because it really enhances the functionality that the Polaris has with it. I also don't think it's a coincidence, because the Polaris itself is actually named after Commander Hester Polaris, who is a Tavaran war hero. She with her bridge crew fought off Tavaran borders. I don't know how to say it. It's Nale or something like that. Naulle. She fought off Tavaran borders on her ship while still commanding the bridge after they were ambushed during the First Tavaran War. So she's got borders on her ship. She's fighting them off. And she's doing this while simultaneously, and she's commanding a small corvette. And so she's fighting off borders with her bridge crew, while the bridge crew she's commanding the bridge crew to engage and attack the strike fleet that ambushed her. and she was able to destroy 3 capital ships while she's got people, in the corridor outside her bridge taking pot shots at her and everything, which is just absolutely nuts. Um, and she repeatedly, harassed the strike fleet in order to keep them on their toes and keep them away from the civilian population, and keep them from attacking civilian targets. So she's credited with saving countless lives along with the destruction of those 3 capital ships and delaying the strike fleet until the UE Navy could come and reinforce her. She ultimately died from her wounds, but went down as a hero, and that's why the Polaris is named after her. So the Polaris, designed the way it is, has a dedicated boarding craft, built to operate from that ship. I think it's a non-coincidental stroke of irony that now the Polaris, named after her Hester Polaris, has a very capable craft for conducting boarding operations against enemy targets.
Human enemy targets.
Yeah, well, any. But I mean, obviously not Tavaran anymore, probably. But but there's numerous examples, and that's just one example of how boarding in the lore, works and how it can be disruptive. And the boarding operation by the Tavaran didn't work out in their favor. They didn't anticipate Hester Polaris, operating her ship so effectively. But there's a lot of other examples where they talk about boarding in the lore. One of the best ones is in Instrument of Surrender, where the Tavaran, it talks about the Tavaran using the Prowlers to stealthily deploy these Naule, maybe that's how you say it. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. Who are they're highly trained infiltrators and saboteurs, and they basically stealthily land on the hull of a capital ship and force their way in. And then even the Vandal have a dedicated boarding craft. They called cleavers, and they're basically these things that get shot at UE capital ships, and they've got like all these spikes, and they it's almost like a boarding torpedo, and they latch onto the side of the ship, bore a hole or cut a hole through the side, and establish essentially a makeshift airlock in which to insert Vandal onto UE ships.
I'm gonna call those the can openers.
Yeah, basically that's what it is. They're
Like,
really mean looking.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen the white box concept art for them, but they're scary looking.
Yeah, they were probably
some of the
scariest Vandal ship.
Yeah. Well, and you can see, I forget in which Squadron 42 related video, they actually show one of them like protruding through the hole where Vandal had boarded the ship.
Oh yeah, that's it was a ruined it was a ruined Idris shot, yeah.
Yeah.
Which means
spoiler alert.
Yeah, that I was gonna say what I think that actually means, but I feel like I am more well equipped to know, so I'm gonna refrain from saying what I mean in case it is spoilers. So carry on.
The CIG has embraced the tactical and strategic value of boarding operations and dedicated boarding craft. And with the Legionnaire being able to board ships, it really enhances the functionality of the Polaris, which is a multi-mission capable corvette. That's the way it's billed as. It's not just an attack craft. It's meant to do a lot of things to serve not only the Navy, but militias. That's what it was designed for. And so the Polaris is equipped with an armory, a brig, and a medical bay. So obviously, the armory, along with a dedicated boarding craft, supports mercenary contracts, where you're boarding an enemy target or landing on a surface to do something like a bunker mission or whatever. But the Polaris is fully capable of outfitting a team of mercenaries to go and do whatever sort of contract you'd have that team go do. And now the Polaris can carry a craft that's capable of carrying them to wherever their mission is going to take them. The brig on the Polaris supports the bounty hunter, the bounty hunting function. Those mercenaries, can, maybe the mission is going to go and capture a high value bounty target. Whether it's on, the bounty is on a ship, and you need to take them alive because you want that bonus payment, or maybe they're down on the planet, holed up in their command center or whatever, like what's going on behind me in the bunkers on Hurston and stuff. Okay, once you have, taken down the enemy, and secured the bounty, you have to have a place to put them. You can, throw them onto the deck of the Legionnaire, take them back up to the Polaris, and lock them up in the brig. But then the Polaris also has the medical bay, as well as a pretty decent sized cargo bay, and we assume plenty of storage for tools and supplies and everything like that. So the Legionnaire also supports the functionality for doing medical and rescue missions. You can imagine you get an alert saying that the ship's been disabled or damaged. They've got wounded on board, or some sort of disaster, or maybe people were attacked down on a planet. You can go down there with your medics and your engineers, either onto another ship or down to the surface, and provide medical aid, transport people back up to the Polaris for further medical treatment. You can bring over supplies and components along with engineers over to another ship to get them back underway and get them repaired. All those sorts of things, and so the functionality of the and then as well a security team along with the engineers and the medics or something like that. The functionality of the Polaris is really enhanced by the ability to carry a Legionnaire. It's a lot more valuable to me based off of how I want to play with my Polaris, and how I'm sure there's a lot of other people like me want to play with their Polaris, than simply just throwing a fighter in there. Ooh, more guns, or I can take on different types of missions.
Before you said that, I didn't actually think of it. The medical stuff. I just looked it up. A Apollo will fit in the hangar.
I have to look at the metrics again. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. The Legionnaire is 32 and the Apollo is 43. And the thing you have in the show notes, the extra small being 72, 128, 36. I know it's units, not meters. Yeah.
What are you
Oh, no, that's
about?
large. Never mind. I was reading it backwards.
Yeah, I was gonna say the extra small is at the bottom.
24, 32, 12.
24, 32, 12. Yeah, I don't think the
It's
Apollo's gonna fit.
43. No. Okay. It's. Ooh. It will fit. It will fit. Only because I bet the room is bigger than that.
Well, so that's it'll fit jank.
Yeah.
And I don't subscribe to jank.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
But so to me, the Legionnaire is to the Valkyrie as a Blackhawk is to the Sea Stallion. If you're not familiar with the Blackhawk and the Sea Stallion, go ahead and look them up. They're super common helicopters in the U.S. military. But it's basically things that I operated from. A Blackhawk, is pretty well known. The UH-60 Blackhawk, the Navy uses them, the Army uses them, the Air Force uses them. Marine Corps doesn't have them, but we would operate from Navy Blackhawks on their ships. But a Blackhawk is a lot smaller than the Sea Stallion. The Sea Stallion is the largest helicopter in the U.S. military inventory. It is huge and very powerful, and that's why it's more like the Valkyrie as far as size and capability. Because a Blackhawk is the Legionnaire is 32 meters long, 23.3 meters wide, and 10.2 meters tall, whereas the Valkyrie is 48 meters long, so 16 meters longer, 38 meters wide, so 14 meters wider, and then 12 meters high, so it's just a hair taller. And let's see, Moriar the Chosen in chat said, okay, so here's the issue. Thinking the ship will survive is an issue. People thinking their ship will survive and not be destroyed is far-fetched. People will destroy that ship. and I'm going to get to that because we're going to talk about some of the challenges associated with boarding. Because yeah, if you're
And
just
why
going to
you
try
never
and approach
fly
it,
alone.
yeah, if you just approach an enemy target, with a Legionnaire, on its own, you're probably going to have a bad time, depending on the target, obviously.
Okay, have you ever
Um,
like swatted a mosquito?
yeah. But the Black Hawk compared to a Sea Stallion, Black Hawk 65 feet long, 54 feet wide, 17 feet high. And those are measurements including the rotor disc. And it has 4 crew seats, so dual pilots and then 2 crew chiefs, or a crew chief. And for me, I'm an actual flight paramedic on a Black Hawk, and up to 11 fully equipped troops, 11 troop seats. The Sea Stallion is 99 feet long, 79 feet wide, and 18 feet tall, or 28 feet tall. Again, including the rotors, and again has 4 crew seats, dual pilot, with 2 crew chiefs. Oh, I accidentally deleted it. Oh, but it's in its normal capacity, normal configuration, can carry 38 fully equipped troops. And if, yeah, 38, that's a whole Marine platoon, or up to, I think it's 53 if you put in the center aisle seats. It just means your troops are equipped. They're not carrying their great big huge pack with them. So the troop capacity is far and away is a lot larger than a Black Hawk. But you can also can take out seats, can put small vehicles in there. I've actually deployed a Zodiac from a little Zodiac rowboat from the inside of a Black Hawk or a Sea Stallion, and then deployed it back into. Jaden Cottrell, thanks buddy for joining us. Welcome to the stream. 07, my friend. And so Nazeris, if you can bring up that picture of the Black Hawk that I have in our show notes.
Yes.
We'll wrap this up with challenges regarding boarding operations, and then we'll look at a few things on the Legionnaire Q&A. And so this image is a pretty good example of what boarding looks like nowadays. And like I said, I've boarded pirate-held vessels twice via Zodiac small boat, where we had to pull up alongside a cargo ship and literally throw boarding ladders up over the rail in order to. It wasn't a large cargo ship, but large to us, but wasn't huge. The climb up the side wasn't that bad in order to board the ship. But then I've also boarded a much larger cargo ship like this via Black Hawk, where we hovered over the top deck. We had, let's see, 2 or 3. It was a long time ago. We had like 3 Black Hawks.
Oh, wow.
Worth of infantry that deployed on this ship to secure the ship because it was so big. But basically, 2 of them are loitering, flying around. We've got guns at the ready in order to, put suppressing fire down, while one of them deploys, and then the next one moves in, and you're quickly fast roping down onto the deck and then moving to secure the ship. But this is just an example of a training operation. You can see down in the bottom right-hand corner, that's actually a breaching prop, where you've got them, using their breaching tools or charges or whatever in order to practice breaching a simulated door. But this is actually a flat deck landing craft that they are practicing boarding. And you can see what looks like another Black Hawk out in the distance behind, providing overwatch. They're not in the right position for it, or maybe they're getting ready to be the ones to drop off troops. And so just a few things to talk about as far as challenges with boarding that are things that we trained for and prepared for that I think still apply, just in a different way. The first thing, obviously, is return fire. So craft used in boarding operations are vulnerable Even in the case of the Legionnaire has heavy armor. It's got 3 small shields, so should have decent regen, but that's not a big shield pool. But at least it has heavy armor, but it's still heavy armor on a small ship. And so if if your target still has teeth and you're getting within range in order to try and attempt boarding that ship, you're going to have a bad time. If you're trying to board a let's say a caterpillar, you might be okay. The caterpillar doesn't have a whole lot of guns, doesn't have a whole lot of defenses. Maybe it's all by itself. But if you're trying to board an Idris, or maybe another Polaris or something like that, or a Kraken, you need to make sure that your target has had its teeth removed, as well as you want to make sure that you have covering fire or overwatch. And in this instance, that means ships. And so that way, maybe you have, you think you've disabled your target, knocked out a power plant or something like that, or some power junctions, and the guns go silent, and okay, now we can move into board. But you still want to make sure you're providing cover, so that way if on approach, maybe an engineer on the enemy ship reroutes power, if they start shooting again, you want to be able to quickly shoot back, disable those weapons, do what you need to do in order to protect that boarding craft with all those boarders on board. So it's something you really need to consider, and that's why we would have additional. You don't go in it alone. There's other craft with other members of the team. They're providing overwatch. Maybe you have snipers on a nearby vessel, that sort of thing. We always had some sort of overwatch in order to have eyes on the target, in order to alert the boarding team to danger, but also to respond to danger. Because once you're committed to that boarding operation, you're vulnerable. The next thing is is the target a moving target? It's really hard to, with a Legionnaire, it's going to be pretty hard to dock with a moving target. They can roll, they can accelerate, slow down, all that sort of stuff. Same thing, is kind of like when we were trying to, if a ship was still moving while we were trying to board it, the pilot has to maintain a hover over a moving vessel, which is hard. Or the coxswains, the people who drive our little boats, have to try and maintain speed next to a ship, with all that other stuff going on while we're trying to board. It's a huge pain in the butt. So and it makes the operation that much more dangerous. So with the Legionnaire, one of the things you want to be consider is is your target disabled, or is it at least partially disabled? Is it less maneuverable? Is it not able to fly as quickly? Anything to make it so that way the pilot of the Legionnaire can have an easier and safer time docking, rather than getting rammed or something like that, or the boarding operation taking longer than it needs to. The next major challenge is once you've docked, or once you're that you're no longer on approach, you've gotten, in this case, over the ship. You have to worry about the fatal funnel, and the fatal funnel isn't just the docking proboscis arm of the Legionnaire, but it's that last minute approach. And so while you're conducting boarding, the boarders are very vulnerable until they can move, disperse within the target, or get to some sort of cover. And so you want to make sure that you're able to provide covering fire. If you're moving down that boarding tunnel, or boarding, what are we calling that thing? The boarding arm? Docking arm?
I like tunnel.
Okay.
Like maybe it's a what do they call the ones on the stations? Isn't it just a tunnel? Spline.
Yeah.
Umbilical cord. I can't speak today. It's fine.
So Moriar the chosen citizen chat. I'm speaking from the attacker's perspective. I'd rather destroy the target than try to board. It's easier to clean up than deal with the crew inside. What if your objective isn't to destroy the target? What if the objective of the contract, of the mission, is to capture the ship? What if you want to capture the ship because you want to take it over and use it for your own purposes,
Yeah,
or
the
sell
only
it?
thing better than one ship is two ships.
Yeah, intact salvage is far more valuable than a bunch of pieces. What if your target is on board and you need to take them alive? There's all these different things that will come into play where destroying the ship isn't an option, or the boarding the ship is a much better option or a more profitable option, um, that sort of thing.
And what weapons do you have, and how big is your target?
Yeah, do you have the weapons to destroy the target? If you only have small weapons, you may be able to, maybe you're kitted out to disable a target, but you're not kitted out to destroy it. And time to destroy is going to get real long, real fast for larger ships.
And then fuel costs are going to be a thing, and like situation decisions will be everly increasing in complexity and how much you actually have to know about the situation you're in to make educated decisions.
These mercenary missions that I talked about could entirely be, hey, a company or an organization or something like that has really valuable cargo or a very valuable contract associated with something on board their cargo ship, and that ship was captured, and they want you to recapture it. They want that ship intact. They want the cargo intact. You can't just blow it up. That's where the state of Star Citizen right now has really gotten us into a false sense of what the game is and what it will be, and it's a lot more granular than that. It's no different than why was I or they've got captives, the 890 jump mission.
Yeah, what if that was your ship?
Rescue. Yeah, your people are on board, or people you need to rescue are on board. You don't want to blow up the ship. That was for us. Boarding the pirate held vessels. We want to return those ships to their owners, but we also want to liberate the crew who are being held hostage.
I think the 890 mission is a really good example. Like, it is a hostage situation as far as you know. No, because there is white security on there. Yeah, it is a hostage situation.
Yep. Yeah.
So you don't want to blow
those
it
things
up.
Those are going to be all the designers, the mission designers are just going to have an absolute field day creating scenarios where boarding is going to be either absolutely necessary or a good option, depending on what you're doing or what your own priorities are. Player agency is a thing.
I can't wait till after this ship comes out now, and Invictus.
Yeah.
Idris,
and the
Javelin,
fatal funnel
Bangle.
that actually leads to the part of the Q&A. They did say that the boarding or docking collar, or whatever you want to call it, or boarding tunnel, whatever, is going to have deployable cover. Yeah, it's going to make fighting your way onto the enemy ship a little bit more tenable rather than just running down a hallway waiting to get shot.
Nice.
And the last thing, and this is just not an all-inclusive list, this is just things that I remembered right off the top of my head from my days doing this and training to do it. I'm sure that there are more up-to-date things and more up-to-date doctrine. There's things that I'm missing, but these are just examples that I remembered, from the good old days. But the last thing is the security cordon. Is the area around the boarding operation secure? You've disabled the target craft. You've knocked it, so it can't get away. You've knocked out its teeth, so it can't shoot down your borders and stuff. But the target vessel could have radioed for send out a request for help. They could have reinforcements coming. So do you have a security cordon around your target and your boarding operation, so that way reinforcements can't come in and disrupt it? Because, like I said, you are very vulnerable during a boarding operation, and if somebody comes in and starts shooting, things can go real far south really quick. Let's see. Jaden says, don't forget the SRV just entered production and will likely be in game before the Legionnaire. You can just disable the engines, and the SRV is able to tow a ship in QT to a station to repair the captured ship.
Disabled engines is
And
not disabled guns.
yeah, and that is true. Yeah, if you're able to disable the ship, it just depends. Like I said, it depends on the mission. It
Yeah.
depends on the contract.
Like
Um,
deciding to board a ship is a very specific action.
yeah,
It is not it's very hard to say you will always or never need to board. Just like you can't say you will always or never need to destroy or always will never disable your targets. It's a very each situation you go into will have different factors. So let's say a caterpillar full of cargo. Even if lawful or unlawful, you have different things that would change what you want to do with the mission. Maybe it's simply you're a pirate, they're going to pay you to kill NPCs on it, and you don't care about the cargo. You don't want to spend time getting it into your cargo hold, and you don't want to spend time flying a dusty old caterpillar back to a port. So you just blow it up. But if you wanted to get paid more than just the mission, you could go in and take it over. Hostage? No, not. Was it? Was the term takeover? Aggressive takeover. Forgot the word. Or you could disable it, tow it, like was mentioned, or you could just let it adrift and call authorities. So there's lots of moving parts that's going to come into a lot of different scenarios. And that's just a caterpillar full of cargo. That is one objective.
yeah, and you could if you're in Stanton, you could use an SRV to tow it back. If you're in Pyro, is there a friendly station you can tow it back to?
Do you have enough fuel to get there?
Do you have enough fuel to get there? Is your mercenary mission to recover this ship and bring it back to wherever, or to bring in this bounty alive? All these different things. It's very granular. CIG wouldn't make this ship if they didn't have plans in order to necessitate or at least make the boarding option valuable to players. It's either going to be you need to board, and if you're not if you're well equipped to do it, great. Maybe you're well equipped to do that board mission because that's what you want to do. Or maybe you avoid those missions because you're not well equipped for it. It's just depends on how you want to play the game and the missions and contracts that you want to take out. But if you have to go into Pyro in order to take this bounty alive or rescue these hostages, all these different things, you're going to have to board the ship. You're going to have to disable the ship, and you're going to have to board the ship. And having a dedicated boarding ship, can make that a better option, especially considering, otherwise you're going to have to do a DVA. And that presents with it a whole bunch of challenges, as far as trying to breach a ship and then board it if you're floating around in space with limited EVA fuel and all that sort of stuff. You can see how these things are, there's a reason our little background thing has the lines for the pathfinding through the verse. You connect the dots. CIG is dropping hint bombs for us, everybody. This is where it's going. And so to wrap up with the Legionnaire, they just posted the Q&A, which was really good, pretty informative. They actually picked some pretty decent questions. They let us know that the conditions for docking are the same as if with Constellation and Merlin. So as long as things are aligned, you can dock. It can be done at any speed, but obviously it's going to be easier if it's done more slowly. So it's advantageous to you to disable or at least partially disable the target ship to make it easier for the Legionnaire pilot to dock with it. Right now, they're saying that the Legionnaire can quantum with the target if the target ship quantums away. So that's really going to be really interesting to see how that works out.
Might be another ship, maybe a Mantis.
Yeah, exactly. That's using a Mantis or any ship with a QED is gonna be a good idea. Um, can't make sure they can't get away, and then you disable them. Blah blah blah. The planned range for the hacking abilities is only going to be a few kilometers, so that's why it's going to be so important to really take out the teeth of that target, or at least some of them, so that way you can start hacking them, because you're going to be in range of the enemy's guns. They we won't get too much into hacking, but players will be able to counter the Legionnaire's hacking ability. The thing that really was confusing to me and didn't make sense, and Nazeris is going to get into this a whole lot more, but one person asked, what can be hacked on the target vessel? For example, will we be able to disable or activate self-destruct, open and close airlocks, manipulate thrusters? And they said the Legionnaire systems are dedicated to the specific and directed task of overriding and overcoming the docking air traffic control systems of the target ship, which in universe is a sufficient challenge by itself. They are not able to address the other command systems of the target ship. To me, I think it would be a whole lot better if you could hack, and just like with any of the other hacking, be able to, if you get the hacking done right, you can, disable, thruster, these thrusters, or disable this power plant, or better yet, once you're able to get docked, be able to hack into the security system and open and close doors, vent atmosphere in order to give your boarders a tactical advantage. It should be one of those things where those hacks are really difficult, but the risk reward benefit, along with players being able to counter them, I think would make for a lot more interesting gameplay, and it would really incentivize players a whole lot more to have somebody who is skilled in engineering in order to to do that sort of counter hack or counter the hack, operate the AI antivirus stuff, or operate the computer's antivirus stuff. They confirmed that it'll fit in capital ships like the Polaris and the Idris. It's an extra small. It cannot be used at this time. So, can the Legionnaire also be used against ships that do not have an airlock, such as the Crusader Hercules? Are turret hardpoints alternative dockable breakthrough points? And they said, at this point in time, we are only committing to it being able to breach dedicated airlock entry points, both the small and large varieties. While we would like manned turrets to be valid breach points in the future via EVA, it is not currently planned to allow automated docking systems to dock with them. Makes me wonder if at some point in the future, with physicalized damage and all that, if there's a hole in the side of the ship, could potentially the Legionnaire dock with a hole, create an airlock or something around the hole and board there. They confirmed that there are deployable covers built into the tunnel to help the boarding team make it to the target. There are no crew facilities, so this is not a long-range, long-duration ship. It's why it's an extra small and meant to be operated from a hangar of a larger ship. So, not equipped for extended durations, extended stay, that sort of thing. Complete the mission, return to base. They said that there's going to be space on board to carry heavy special weapons and heavy armor in the equipment room. Let's see. And they said, we are working with the core gameplay pillar to ensure that if heavy armor cannot be worn in the seats, as not all seats will have this restriction, then it is in the least impactful place to allow quick equipping before boarding. So if you're in the drop seats and you can't wear heavy armor, you'll be able to equip it before boarding. Get out of your drop seat, get in your heavy armor from the locker. So maybe you take one or two people in heavy armor on your boarding team.
Also a great example of how this is gameplay not for current design, but for the end design.
Yeah, their end point. Does the Legion have any measures to disguise itself from early detection? So no stealth. No. The Legionnaire is Anvil, so it has armor. It is meant to be. It is heavily armored. It has decent shields for a small ship. I really hope it got a size 2. I hope it gets an upgrade to 1 size 2. I think it'd be better than 3 size 1s, but that's just my opinion. The the Legionnaire has built-in hacking, whereas other ships are going to need. In order to have that hacking, you're going to have to install the blade in order to do that. So that's an advantage that the Legionnaire has over other ships for doing hacking stuff. But they further iterate. For example, you could upgrade the Vanguard Sentinel to support ATC hacking, but you need to manually EVA over to board after that. So they're still saying that the hacking will only be for allowing boarding, docking, airlock access, that sort of thing. But it does, the way they wrote that one makes it sound like it's not just the docking, but also being able to I don't know. It's weird. Because like why would you, upgrade that? But player choice, whatever.
Yeah.
How maneuverable would the Legionnaire be compared to the Cutlass Steel, Prowler, Vanguard Hoplite, and Valkyrie? Its maneuverability will be closest to the Steel, but as the ship progresses during development, we'll adjust it as necessary to reflect its much heavier armor.
So less.
So it does
than
have
Steel.
heavy armor. Yeah. And that was a debate in Inforunners for a while about the armor on the Steel, because in the Steel comlink, they did say that it had mil-spec armor. So it does have armor. I'm assuming it means more than a Cutty Black, but we'll just have to wait and see. But hopefully the maneuverability is pretty good. Obviously the Cutlass Steel is a lot more maneuverable than the Valkyrie. But mass-wise, the Vanguard Hoplite and the Prowler should be very maneuverable, but the Vanguard Hoplite doesn't have VTOL. So you're not going to be hovering for very long in a Hoplite. It's meant for forward flight. How heavy is the armor compared to other ships, considering it might take hits from much larger vessels as a boarding ship? It is designed to take significant fire on approach, so it's relatively heavily armored compared to other dropships and much closer to other Anvil ships, such as the Terrapin. The co-pilot controls one turret as well as a hacking system. The pilot has the other turret slave to his view, the one on the front, and both can manage the shields. NPC co-pilots will be able to do the role of hacking if no human is present, but there's no plans for any bounty seats or cells for holding captured enemies. So put some zip tie cuffs around their wrists and throw them on the floor, and that's it for the Steel.
Legionnaire.
The Legionnaire. And that leads us into Naz's scanner anomaly, which to me is really interesting because the information we found about hacking kind of contradicts what they're saying about the Legionnaire's hacking ability and what it's limited to.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be right back. I'm going to go use the bathroom.
All right.
Take it away, Nazeris.
Yay! Hacking, one of my favorite subjects and one of my most anticipated gameplay loops. Okay. So before we go directly into hacking, Morier, the Chosen, said that the gameplay design is only applicable towards fighting NPCs, not players. Players will just self-destruct. Not according to what they'd like to get to with Death of the Spaceman. They don't want to be... basically, if you're blown to smithereens, that is a point where you just hard die. Because they have the regen stuff now. So that will have trauma. So they want to get to a point where whatever that trauma is, whatever is taken from you, let's go with Idris, that Idris is not coming back in an hour. It's not coming back in 5 hours. It's coming back in a month. Whatever the time it takes, and then it has to be shipped to wherever it is you told them to ship it to. And everything on it. You're going to need to have stocked kitchens, to have stocked armories, and the components, and the resources to keep the ship up and running, the fuel cost that it's going to take. There is much more game than is actually known or even finished being designed. So players will not be, if the design goes according to plan, because you'd say you're not talking current game but long term. They are designing the game in the future, in their long term, to be that self-destruct is basically a not option. Self-destruct you only do. Actually, I can't even think of a term or a reason why you would self-destruct. Even if you have an interior, if you have a final fight, you take that final fight instead of giving up. Because if you can repel the borders, if you're disabled and you can repel the borders in FPS, then you'll take that so that you can have the minute to work on your ship to get the engines back online to get out. Just self-destructing and waiting for your Idris to pop up at the next, when the claim timer goes out, is not going to be an option. So, and by not an option, I mean the design as the reason they've been designing these features, and they will continue to press harder into this. They want the design to not give you that option. Not that anything they've said is specific, or it's the purpose of the design. That's the word I'm looking for. The purpose of the design is to make that not an option. And we don't have that yet. We're not incredibly close to it yet. We have persistence, sword meshing, and deathless spaceman to go, and turns to go. We still need hacking. We still need this time to kill being adjusted. We have the dogfighting being adjusted. We have inventory stuff that still has yet to come online. There is dozens of things that has to come online still for the intended design to actually come to completion. Small rant over.
CIG has plans for all of these things.
Yes.
We don't know what the exact plans are. We can only infer from what they've told us that they have plans and that this is going to be a thing. You know, it's a, and I'm not going to pick on you. I'm not picking on you more. It's a flawed conclusion to assume that this isn't going to be a thing, and yet CIG is building a ship specifically for it.
And there will definitely be people that just like, no,
they're going to be
done.
Yeah.
Rage quit exists.
But CIG is going to heavily disincentivize self-destructing and committing suicide. And when you're talking about losing people, et cetera, people aren't going to die either. People are going to have the same, time to destroy, just as a ship will.
Yep.
The enhancements to the actor status and medical gameplay are going to come to a point where, somebody gets wounded on the way in, but it's going to be pretty hard to actually kill a person. I don't think people are going to do it, and I think that CIG can easily incentivize people to board or and to risk being boarded and everything.
And as far as talking about gameplay, there or current game, it is almost impossible to talk current game with stuff that's not out yet, and with functions that are in design, not in the current game. Yes, people will choose to blow up their ship now. They also don't run with escorts like they should be doing. So people will do what people do, but it will be greatly discouraged.
Yeah, you're not going to want to regenerate. You have a limited number of lives, and even if you do regenerate, you're still going to have consequences. So, yeah.
All right.
It's all spelled out there, and that's why it's important to read all these things in order to be able to connect the dots for everything and how it all fits together.
Yes. So moving into the actual scanning anomaly, hacking ... question mark. It's not what was written. Actually, Tree wrote this entire thing for me. I'm just recollecting everything. Anyway, I did do I did go over the research that I needed to, but I didn't write anything down. I'm just pulling from my brain. But I think ... question mark is pretty good. Anyway, so we were giving hacking. I actually don't know when they actually said hacking was going to be. It was a long time ago. I don't even know if it was as far back as 2012. But hacking has been kind of one of those things that I've always said was going to be in the game. kind of like bounty hunting or cargo running. And the basic idea is hacking will give you access or control over something that you do not have outright control or access to. Pretty simple. So we have the Legionnaire, so kind of pulling off of our discussion, we have the Legionnaire in its hacking terminal, and we have some art from the original concept page where they are doing a hack on a ship. So that's kind of how we're transitioning slowly from the Legionnaire talk into hacking talk. So what exactly does hacking do? What can it do? And what are the gameplay associated with hacking? So much like with mining is a gameplay that miners will more or less enjoy. People who kind of enjoy the kind of gameplay that miners is for. They built mining for miners. For cargo running, they're building cargo running for cargo runners. Spreadsheets and all that. People who love that stuff will love cargo running. Bounty hunting, farming, whatever it is, they're building these loops for people who enjoy that sort of gameplay and that sort of fantasy. So they've said they're building hacking for people who want to hack. So originally in their, let me pull back up the notes, I didn't write down the day this video came out. I should have. Let's see if it can open without it being noisy. It cannot, because it doesn't want to. There we go. Alright, so the original video was June 2nd, 2021. Wow, that was actually pretty new. And that's the first, like, actual gameplay we got on hacking. And it came alongside, at least closely followed another image, and I just lost all of my windows. There we go. Being this one right here. Trying to do everything at once. And it was talked about, I believe we got the image first, and then he actually explained what it was. Which is a digital visualization of your hack. So you have to get in and do this little maze to either get to a control point or to find data. I don't know, they didn't say if it was you return to start to actually extract the data, but you're getting through firewalls and things using this virtual maze. So it's a representation of your hack. And he said that would be on the visor. I believe they fixed that later and saying it's going to be in the mobiGlas. They want to do more stuff with the mobiGlas. So I'm not quite sure where all that is, if it's going to be visor or mobiGlas, but they do want to start using the mobiGlas a lot more. After that, I had an extreme fit, and I said I don't want to play Candy Crush in my visor. Degrading it a little bit, because I don't want platforming games as hacking. I've always wanted coding, some type of language, even if it was just like visual scripting, like block code, or like even just a click on node game, not a level, not a maze runner or platformer for hacking. If any of you know the hacking games from Sly Cooper, that's basically what they were explaining. But we did get a, and I'm going through the notes a bit quickly. I don't know why. They did refine what they said a bit later. So it was said that we are still getting that 3D representation. So that is what we're getting. However, it was also mentioned we are also getting a... you got kicked from chat. No. I'm sorry about that. That we are also getting console commands. What form console commands? We don't know. He simply said there will be a console where you input commands. So we now have these two versions of hacking. We have the 3D representation and the console. They live together. So people who maybe don't necessarily do hacking that much or don't do it as well can use the 3D representation, but there will be definite benefits for having the console. And that fulfills my need. And a lot of people are saying just have both, that way plebs can also use hacking. And so that is what they're going to be doing. They are going to have the console and the maze to do that. So what is the gameplay associated with hacking, or what are you trying to get at for hacking? So it was explained that you are running after a skeleton key, so basically a key to get into the servers or get access to what you're looking for. In the first version, it was explained that you are looking for parts of a password that will let you into whatever it is that you're looking for. So if you're hacking a data server, you're getting a password to access the data. If you're trying to open a door, you're getting the password to unlock the door. How that all works out, these 2 videos were pretty early in development, so we haven't heard a lot, though we'll be showing where it is on the progress tracker a little while later. So what can be done with it? Almost anything that has a command in the game. And by command, I mean a function that actually does something in the code that is written in CryEngine. So open door, shut off engines, any data point. These are all things that they can connect to. But the people who are working on it now, just the technical designers, engineers, are building a feature that can do all these things. It is up to the mission people and the gameplay designers and the vehicle teams to actually decide how this actually works in the game. What is currently going through now, as far as the information we have, is just them building the backbone and structure of how the hacking gameplay is going to actually work. So we don't have any you hack this terminal and it gives you these options to do these things. We don't have that yet, because that is all the last phase of it. It's actually connecting it into game systems. I keep hitting my mic, and I'm sorry. So as far as difficulty, that will also scale with your ambitions, I guess it would be. If you're hacking a door on an outpost that nobody cares about, that nobody's been to, and that only a farmer has owned, it's probably not going to be that difficult. But if you're hacking into Bearing headquarters, it's going to be really difficult. It was mentioned that the size of the 3D visualization may lead into difficulty. Also, there will be a force going against you. He called it the antivirus for the 3D visualization that will be hunting you. I forget if he said haunting you or hunting you. But it will be there trying to remove you and make sure you do not complete your goal. As far as the console, they didn't say what gives the difficulty in that.
It really makes me think of Pac-Man.
Yes, very much so, yeah.
The little ghosts are following you around. You're trying to get the cherries. And
I really hope that I can just close the entire 3 visualization window and just work in the console. So we've seen a lot, and I actually don't have a lot of the images in front of me for the props that they've been working on with the little yellow boxes and the weird handled cards.
So that is in the show notes, and it's time stamped. Let's see. Yeah, actually, are you able to bring that up in our little window screen?
I can in a video.
Yeah, it's the YouTube link that's underneath the screenshot where it says utility, docking override, hacking override. It's that one. And it's timestamped right at where they start showing you the props.
Ooh.
For like, but this is old, so I don't know how that's still if it's still the same, because they.
Okay. I actually didn't see this one. Yeah. There we go. Okay. Yep.
So I don't know how. So take it with a grain of salt, because, they are if you want to afterwards, you can pull up that.
Yeah. So this was super early visualizations of actually hacking, and there's your little visualization window in each of these screens. This was very old, so this has probably changed even with the evolution of it just to its second iteration that we've even heard. I guarantee that everything basically about this has evolved. We also have another one that we'll show you in a minute after we get all these ones done.
Yeah, because now I thought they said that it was going to be wireless using the device, not you're not plugging. I think the
So
cards will still be there for certain things, but
so how I currently understand it is you will use a hacking chip, and then it will beam the hack into your visor or mobiGlass. So these things can still work.
okay.
I think what you're mentioning is it's not going to be played on the console itself. And you're right, I don't believe it is played on the console. I think that is just all placeholder visualization and UI, just because these guys are, I'm pretty sure this is from the props team, and they do not do UI, and they are not really, they don't need to keep up to date on the exact design. They just need to know you need a hacking terminal. Here's our ideas for a hacking terminal.
That hacking device sneak peek, it's how that plays into it that I'm confused about.
Yeah. See, that's what I was questioning before. So that's that bit. So I'm gonna switch us over to the other image we have, and then this one. So I didn't actually check this. How do we know that this is an actual image of a hacking device? Did the sneak peek say hacking something rather?
Yeah, I forget which. I'd have to open up the newsletter because it's from, let's see, it's sneak peek from 2022. That's December 8th.
What's the title?
So, I have to pull up the actual sneak peek.
Okay, so you do that. So assuming this is a another device, it would probably be.
That's what it says. I don't have the email up anymore.
Yeah. That's fine. It would probably be just they're designing several inputs or ways to get in, and it makes sense that we'll have wireless and you have to interact with the console because we also have ship hacking, which is kind of circling back around to the Legionnaire. And we have stuff like the Herald, the Sentinel, MSR, and now the Legionnaire that can all do hacking, or that will be able to do hacking. Or will any ship be able to do hacking? We don't really know. The gameplay has not been designed yet, as far as we know. They are much farther along, and Tier 1 will probably be only FPS hacking. In all honesty, it will probably be only FPS hacking for the first tier. I guess Tier 0 would be. But we have, like, it runs into data gameplay. It also runs into the resource gameplay and the resource management. I think the resource management is also being able to have fuses turn on lights that we saw a couple years ago. But as I said earlier, the functions that they have are not determined by the tech itself. That is determined by the people who implement it into whatever. So it is very possible that even though the ship concept team said that the Legionnaire can only hack to dock, when it's implemented, it could be better. Or you could use a server blade to make it better. Depending on how they implement it into the Legionnaire, into the Sentinel and the Herald and things, it is either going to be a general way or an upgradable way. So that way...
I think that makes a lot of sense because... I don't know how to say the guy's name, but from the FPS content feature team, one of the guys who's designing hacking, the Legionnaire is probably going to come out next year, and they won't have ship hacking. He says eventually later down the line you're going to be able to hack someone's ship, and that leads us up into the PvP aspect of hacking, and he says. Where's that quote?
Yeah, the only link I can find currently is the sneak peek on Reddit. Sorry, it's just labeled hacking tool.
But they did say that they want you to be able to hack somebody's ship and hack a ship's systems, but it's, he says later down the line, and this video is from back in December. And so we're getting, the tier 0 hacking is what's on the progress tracker. And like you said, it's just going to be FPS hacking with the hacking device and the little chips that we have now. Ship-based hacking. Even if the Legionnaire, comes out next Invictus launch week, the hacking that it's going to have is not going to be ship-to-ship hacking. You're just going to be hacking a system that is already in game. And so it'll be a while before ship hacking will come in, and maybe at that point is when they could expand the abilities of the Legionnaire in order to do more. But when the Legionnaire comes out, that hacking ability isn't going to be in game yet.
Yeah,
we're not going to go from tier 0 hacking towards the end of this year or wherever it is. I forget what the screenshot says.
I'm about to bring it up.
Ship hacking in a year.
Yeah. All right, so let's actually talk about where we actually are with hacking. So we've discussed kind of what they want it to be, what they've talked about, where the design of it kind of is vaguely. We don't have a lot of information on it, so we'll be probably doing lots of sit reps on this over the next quarter, next 2 months, actually, as this...
Part of the reason it makes for a great scanner now.
Yeah, no, we have lots of updates to still do on this. Just like... talking about ships, though, which I guess we're going to start doing now. I don't know. So, it is currently scheduled to finish its current slate of work. And that's not just by one team. That's all its current scheduled work. The end of July. What happens at the end of July? Tree, what happens at the end of July?
Well... So, and the other thing that's interesting is the team that goes out to July is just the sandbox team.
There are two places that this could end up.
You're talking about the patches.
Yes.
317.2. I really, when the, we can't show both, but it's super convenient that hacking is wrapping up with the last of the work being finished, by the EU sandbox team. Right after they're finishing the work on lockable containers.
Yep.
And we're getting the Reclaimer derelicts.
Yep.
And other POIs.
And as always, every ship that comes out, every amount of content that comes out will be up to its gold standard when it comes out. So if there's hacking to be done, it's going to be in the new stuff.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if it isn't. And it's not, we always have to go back and say, we do not use the progress tracker to estimate dates, blah, blah, blah. But when you see all the teams that have been working on hacking and how much work has been done.
Yeah, there's a
they haven't added anything.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a, I don't even, ritualistic way, not ritual, but nebulous way to read the roadmap to actually figure out when what is coming. So as I said, it could come in two ways. Either this is the work they need to get done and all the prerequisites of having it into Star Citizen are already done and this is in the code base. It comes out in 3.17.2. Or this is the initial implementation of it and they still need to go over it and it needs persistence. It will be in 3.18. Could it be in 4.0? Absolutely. We don't actually technically know if there's any implementation, or is this the implementation only in the squadron and they haven't started the conversion over from squadron into Star Citizen? We don't know yet. There's a lot of information you gotta look at when reading the roadmap. You have to look at other features that went through their squadron back to Star Citizen, and there's not a lot of stuff that does that right now because hacking is such a big feature. When we start talking about transport missions or farming, we'll have a little bit more of an idea because we watched hacking mature and come out into this new cadence that they have for Squadron, then back into Star Citizen. So, reading it right now, there's a lot of stuff because they just kind of restructured where everything is. It could be done in July. We could get it at the end of July. It's perfectly feasible. The work is done. We get it. But we could get it Q1 next year. Just because different things. Maybe there's something else that's being worked on that is in the code base that they're working on, but the feature's not done. It doesn't say that.
It'd be really great to have lockable containers, in the derelicts and everything.
Absolutely. And have to actually hack them. Yeah.
Yeah. But hack them, but not only hack those things, but have to hack doors, that still have power or something like that to get to them.
Yep.
It would just add a little bit more flavor to those derelicts versus just the platforming, and then grab container, open it up, now you have loot. So I'm very hopeful that it's a 3.17.2, but if not 3.17.2, it would be really great for the 3.18 patch. As far as new gameplay, that's a big gameplay.
Yeah,
loop.
and they already have salvage bounty hunting. Well, maybe bounty hunting and cargo.
I think bounty hunting is going to be
4.0?
I think bounty hunting is the reason they want to do a 3.19 patch.
Okay. So you think
they want to add, a big new gameplay element, along with things like the new star map, that sort of stuff, to make it work with 3.19 in order to hold us over while they beat server meshing into submission to get it.
Yeah, because bounty hunting, it's sprint, not supposed to finish till October, so that makes sense that it being a 19.
Yeah, that's just my speculation.
Yep.
But yeah,
that does make sense. So that is kind of what we know. Everything we know on hacking as it is currently portrayed to us. As I said like 50 times now, we don't have all the information. They've only shared very small glimpses of their design phase. They're almost done with it now. We have no idea functionally what the feature is. There's a lot of content that comes out from ISC and SCL and the monthly reports and things. This just wasn't one of them. So that's what we got.
And everything, we did a bunch of paraphrasing because there's a whole bunch of quotes that were really important from the sources, but everything is going to be in the show notes. So the links to the ISCs, the SCLs, the other things, it's all going to be in the show notes. If you just want to read all the quotes that we pulled from the different people who are working on these, it gives you a lot of really good context. But it's all in the show notes. And as we always say, if you know of other information that we didn't include or that we missed, please let us know.
Absolutely.
Send us a message on Discord, or leave a comment in the comments on the YouTube video. That way we can update this, because we will, as we're doing these updates for everything, if we come across new information, whether someone else shares it with us or we find it, we're going to add that in a later video, to make sure everything's as accurate as possible.
Yep. And just so we're all clear, Tree basically wrote this entire episode, so I helped very little on this one. So kudos to him.
I had some time.
That is something I can't say I have a lot of. Even though
I normally don't, but this time and we had to delay this episode, so I got to get a lot of that.
Next week is all on me, because I'm the guy who paraphrases the monthly reports.
Yep. Oh man, I haven't had a chance to crack those open.
I opened them like, yep, I gotta get back to work. So that's gonna be fun.
Nazeris, do you have the images from my scanner anomaly up, or can you get them up?
That is a great question. They're not linked.
They are not, just because I screened them from the YouTube at the top. You could pull up the YouTube
let me
and
try
then.
Something. Let me try something.
So basically, my scanner anomaly comes from. We just got done with Invictus Launch Week.
Yeah.
A few weeks before Invictus Launch Week, we had the Invictus Launch Week teaser trailer. And the teaser had a few clips that were included in last year's trailer for Invictus Launch Week, when it was held at Microtech. and I didn't pay much attention to it last year. You know, it looked super cool, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't put too much stock into it. But then when it came back up again, I was like, that's really interesting. I wonder. And so it led me to think that maybe some of the scenes in the teaser trailer are showing off the next great star system. And I say the next great star system because it brings us back to the next great starship when the Redeemer was born. If you haven't watched those videos from way back when, 2014, was a series that Star Citizen did, CIG did, where they had
And
fans.
how every other ship was better than
ships.
the Redeemer.
Yep.
I
really like
I
those
don't
other
know
ships.
how every ship would like. The Odin needs to exist.
Yeah.
Like
But basically, so
it was so good.
yeah.
Okay, so
Go
I
back and watch
have
it. It's good.
I had the video that I'll just kind of scan through and I'll try and hit your images.
So here's the first image where one of the Squadron 999 pilots is flying over what looks like a base. You know, it's a UE Navy base or something like that. And you've got a bunch of Gladiuses and Vanguards sitting out on the tarmac. You know, the hangars, landing pads, control towers, all this stuff, and it's, you know, surrounded by clouds. And looking at it, I was like, that's nowhere in game. And that place is big. Where could that be? And if you move into the next images,
So as we're moving into the next images, when I first saw this, I'm like, oh, this is one of the space station platforms. But yeah, like until I looked at your notes, I'm like, oh my god, he's right.
yeah, I could be. This is
Yes.
This is tinfoil hat time.
Yeah, this is an entire segment about tinfoil hats. So I hope everyone brought their own. We do not supply tinfoil hats yet, but that sounds like a great merch idea.
Yeah, that would actually really be. But you can see that this base, you know, the airfield, whatever you want to call it, is pretty sizable. But if you look at the architecture, it's very familiar to me because I'm very familiar with the Castra system. And the Castra system is one of the systems that people have speculated could be the next system to get introduced. Jaden, you hush. Because of its proximity to Stanton. A while back, when we had the progress tracker shortly introduced, they had, I think it was the Planet Content team, had a couple of unannounced sprints, and one of it, you know, the one was unannounced system. I forget what the other one was, unannounced planet or whatever.
Content, yeah.
And so, yeah, everybody was losing their minds trying to think of, oh, what system are they working on next? And so one of the front runners is the Castra system, because it shares a large jump point with both Pyro and Nyx. So it's very close to Stanton, and would make a really good sort of loop as far as you know,
there's actually mountain in this one.
Nyx. What's that?
There's actually mountain in this one.
Yeah, that so in the background, it's really hard to see, and I couldn't quite tell what it was, but it does look like rocky terrain.
Yeah, like if you look at, and I'm like, this is the extent like pixel peeping here, like over on the like very far left corner, it looks like sky. So I'm like, that looks like what we have for the capital docking areas right now. But those are mountains on the right.
Yeah, those are mountains on the right. You know, this looks like a great big, or they look like mountains, or at least rocks on the right. There's clouds. In another shot, you see blue sky.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously, wherever this is, it's surrounded by clouds. It's potentially up in the mountains. And in the Castra system is there's two planets. One of them is a lifeless rock. It's actually called Bullseye, because back during the Xi'an Cold War, the military used it for target practice. the next planet is called Cascom, which is short for Castra Command, because during the Xi'an Cold War, Castra was essentially right up along the Perry line, and the military took over the system. They had the planet terraformed. They didn't do a good job of it, and turned it into a giant a military base with a huge station up in orbit for servicing capital ships and bombers. And so now he's got the some of the concept art. Castra is also, out of all the systems, Castra, Castracom, and then the landing zone, which is the city of Sherman. Sherman used to be basically just one big military base. And most of it was demilitarized and privatized, and it's now a bustling city and a major landing zone on Cascom. And but Sherman is built into the side of Ulysses Peak, the really high mountain on Cascom. And the reason all those clouds are there is because the UEE did a sloppy job of terraforming the planet. And so now, during much of the year, the entire planet is covered in a thick cloud layer. And so a lot of times you can't even see the cities below the clouds. There apparently are other cities, but they're not named or anything like that. But all you can see is like faint lights and glowing through the clouds as you're flying above it, because the planet is often covered in clouds, but the only thing that peeks up through the clouds is Ulysses Peak and Sherman. But if you look at some of the buildings in this concept art, the buildings are designed in what's called monumentalism style, which is something that one of I forget which messer popularized during their reign. And so basically all of Cascom and Sherman is done up in this style. But you can see the shape language is really similar to the towers and some of the structures that you can make out during this part of the trailer. And but there's also still a significant military presence on Sherman. There is a military base there. And so it stands to reason that for deploying to Stanton and wherever else for Invictus Launch Week, that they might have launched from the base on Sherman. So there's also that massive orbital station that used to be for servicing capital ships and bombers, but we know it's totally capable for servicing capital ships, and I'm sure has been retrofitted for all the cargo stuff and everything. But it's now owned by Crusader Industries because it's part of their Starliner network.
Oh.
So we know that they're working on taxi missions and transport missions. We know that the Genesis Starliner is going back into concept and getting some concept work done this year, like right now. It's coming up. We know that Pyro is essentially done and will be coming with 4.0. That Nyx is a super easy system because there's not much more to it besides Delamar and Levski. And so that's another easy system for them to implement. And so they'll need to have another system, another habitable system, another lawful system to introduce, on the tail of these, especially for, you need to have a place for hauling to take place. As they continue to expand the quantum system, you're going to need a place for the Hull C to take its cargo. And the Hull C isn't really meant for, making a small 2 or 3 AU jump from Crusader to Microtech. That's not really what the Hull C is for. It's a really short distance. That's that's basically going down the block for a ship the size of a Hull C, or the larger hulls. And in lore, the Stanton to Castra run is like the equivalent, it's similar but different to the Kessel run in Star Wars, because you're going from you could take your cargo and go the long route from Stanton, the longer, safer route from Stanton to Castra to Sherman and everything. But that means you would have to go through Terra and then through Hadrian. Hadrian is 65 AU across, and I forget how big Terra is, but I want to say it's decently sized. Versus just going through Pyro, which is 15 AU.
Oh wow.
It makes for a much shorter trip, but you're running the gauntlet through a pirate system. That's why it's called the Stanton to Castra run, because it means you can really shorten your trip, save a lot of money on fuel, save a lot of time going that route versus going the long way around. And I think that's why Castra is going to be the next system, and why they put the military base right there, because it gives us a reason to go there. Not only is there a landing zone with people, it's a full-on city, but there's a military base and a military presence from which the UE Navy can operate. But it also is a really good location for delivering things that would be made in Stanton. ArtCore makes all sorts of components. There's companies on ArtCore besides ArtCore that make ship components. Hurston makes ship weapons. It's a really great system to tie in what we would have in game. A year, 2 years from now, to add in a system like Castra. Along with it being a fairly easy system to make, because it is just the 2 planets, 1 major landing zone, and they're really good at mountains, and Castra is covered in mountains. It's covered in mountains. It's largely covered by fog. Hello, they're good at making clouds. We've got clouds now. It gives them reason to continue to iterate on those. But that's really it for my scanner anomaly. I really think that they basically giant hint drop with that footage from the from the teaser trailer for Invictus Launch Week this year, and from the main trailer from Invictus Launch Week last year, that they all but told us, hey, this is Castra. Or it could be a Squadron 42 asset, but because of the clouds, because of the Rocky Mountains, because of the sky, the blue sky above, I think it's the military base on Sherman.
I mean, it could very well be both. It could be part of a cinematic in Squadron. So they said, hey, we got this stuff already. Why not use it in another cinematic?
Yeah. And it really could be, it could be a military base from the Messer era anywhere. They'll reuse those assets. But it's all too convenient that there's a military presence, military base on Sherman. And that Sherman is on Cascom. Cascom is in Castra. It's only, 2 jumps from Stanton. It's it's connected by a large jump point to both Pyro and Nyx. So it can make for some interesting travel routes, and make for some very interesting gameplay. Running the gauntlet, providing having to provide escorts for your hauling ships as they're making the Stanton to Castra run. Bringing goods back and forth, all that.
Yeah, and then all we need is Hadrian and Terra, and we got the Terra loop.
Yeah, that'll make for some really good hauling routes. They're not reconcepting the whole D and the whole E just for grins.
The whole C got significantly bigger,
but they're coming sooner than a lot of other ships, I imagine. And it's not too difficult to copy pasta stuff, from the whole C and the rest of the MISC line. In order to get those big ships out and get them ready.
Yep. And we're gonna need stuff to do with them.
Yeah. So Nazeris, I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else? Because otherwise,
I do not. I could have gone on an entire spiel on the lunacy of not claiming a system, which is more than half the entire Northern Highway, but it's fine. We'll cover that another day. So we also, I do want to mention that we did do a scanner anomaly, I believe it was, on... Yes, it was in episode 1, the size of star systems and why they're different between the star map and the SC Tools wiki. So if you guys want a deep dive on star system sizes, Tree did a great job in that one, describing all the weirdness that went on with. They've been updating a lot of lore recently, so that's in
Yeah,
episode
they've
1.
made a lot of changes over the years since they released the star map, and they don't tell us that they're making those changes. They're behind the veil, behind the curtain.
I do believe we are going to attempt next Monday to be the roadmap updates.
Yep.
Are we doing both of them next Monday?
Roadmap updates.
Monthly reports
from
updates?
last week?
Monthly report updates?
Yeah. Yep, monthly report. Yeah, we should be good to go to do the monthly report next Monday.
Both of them?
I think we should do that collate them together.
Okay, so yes.
Time.
Okay, that makes sense.
And
I'm just making sure. I'm asking you to let them know. That's what I'm kind of doing. So that is the plan for next Monday. Depending on how much time we actually have, we might just come up with something else to then. But that is the current plan. So be back here next Monday. What day is it? Wednesday. We have like no time to write.
I do think that we're gonna need to do at some point. There was information from Friday's SCL that needs to be sit-repped.
Okay.
I forget what it was exactly, but we do the Friday's SCL. If you haven't watched it already, was really good. They answered, gave us a lot of good information. So I just need to go back and watch it and make some notes, because I think there's stuff for one of mine and I think one of yours in there.
Yeah, you're saying something about that. I also want to do, possibly when we do the sit rep on that, instead of doing anomalies or something, so assuming this is in 2 weeks, we do the sit rep, the roadmap update, and then the questions not answered on SCL that we've touched on or that we have easy answers to. I want to see if we can work that into the schedule, because there was a lot of questions, at least for this last week, where we could just read down the list and answer like 5-10 of these questions just by almost all by the stuff we've actually done for Pathfinders. So I want to see if we can try and incorporate this kind of info dump, answering the questions they didn't answer, or just trying to put the information out there so people can stop asking questions that we have the data to already on SCL. That way we can get to the good, bigger questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question, but we already have information regarding that, so go read this.
Yeah, and we want to make that as available and as easy to get at as possible. So that is what we've done. That is the next 2 weeks of Pathfinders. In other news, this is kind of I feel kind of bad, but this is a problem with why I'm actually not great at this. My YouTube actually hit 500 subscribers today. So shameful self-promotion, because I feel horrible saying it.
Yay, cheers.
Thanks. We do post these over on YouTube in full, and I also split it up. So that is basically what the only content that's been up there for the past month, because I'm not good at making content anymore, because I've been basically wholesale on streams. But I am planning to at least get something done. I'm trying very desperately not to make Minecraft mod spotlights, but it's the thing that's performing most on my channel, and it has been for a while, and I only have 2 of them. So join the Discord. Link is down below the stream. I did fix it. Ender, I forgot to say that. I did fix the link. But join the Discord. Let me know what you guys think about not only the podcast, but also the what I should do with my YouTube channel, other than just posting these over and over. What kind of YouTube-specific content would you guys like to see? So if I can get something else performing better than Minecraft, that'd be great. Because I don't do Minecraft that much. I do lots of other things. And we are swiftly arriving at 200 followers here on the Twitch. So kind of updates on the analytics for that. Again, this will be posted. Hopefully I will get the full episode for this out on Thursday.
I should probably plug myself, because
yes, you have lots of things to plug as well.
I've built myself a studio. I'm working on learning all the OBS stuff. I want to start making content. I'm gonna keep it small and do streaming at first, but I want to make YouTube videos eventually. But I've got my fancy microphone here that you can see. I've got my fancy light set up, really showing how shiny my head is because I showered and buzzed my head right before the show. And, got my fancy background on my green screen, so I'm having a lot of fun with it. But I'm going to be streaming gameplay in Star Citizen with my Hood Rat friends, but also just doing little short tutorial things regarding Star Citizen's development.
And trying to lure.
Here's
Paul
how
out
you
of a
read the
job.
roadmap. Here's how you find the lore. This is where you go for this and that. Our Nazeris and I are keeping our trade secrets to ourselves.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Because that's we enjoy doing this, but we want to empower you to be able to do it yourself as well in order to be engaged when you come in.
We would like nothing more than for everyone to know exactly what we know and how to do it.
Yeah, as well as to hey, I found this when I was doing my own search. Oh, how did I miss that? Thank you so much. The more people that do that, it's the rising tide lifts all boats. We all become more knowledgeable and have a better understanding of how all this nebulous stuff works. Yeah, Jaden Cottrell is one of my proud Hood Rat friends. We enjoy playing together, have been for years.
I think Tree is one of the most popular content creators that doesn't make content.
Yeah,
he's been. And I was. He's what you have a lore citizen. The lore citizen post yet?
Yeah, I just a lore citizen episode with Paul Shelley over on Astropub posted yesterday afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Where we did a deep lore dive on the UE Navy, and he covered the Navy and I covered the Marines. We had a lot of good back and forth. It was a lot of fun. I think it was really informative, and if you enjoyed my take on the Legionnaire and boarding and all that, go give that a listen. If you're not if you don't watch the Astropub, the office hours and Captain's Tables, Nazeris is a pretty frequent guest on the Captain's Table episodes. You were just on, was it last week? I'm always like a week behind watching them.
Yes, it was just this last one. Yeah, last Saturday.
Yeah, you and was it Zark, right? Am I saying that right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just finished watching that episode. It was a good episode. I'm supposed to, Paul's working on getting me mixed into the schedule to go be on Captain's Table as well. But yeah, we're avid parts of that community, and I really enjoyed doing that Lore Citizen podcast. And it's supposed to be going back on to do another episode with him and Algorid from Inforunners in jail as well in the future. So
nice.
Go give that a watch. Give Paul a like and a subscribe over at Astropub. And, yeah, we like
also
to
been on
plug other people. Yes, Puppet over on Frontiers. If you haven't watched his Banu Merchantman video,
it's so good.
My gosh.
I cannot wait till he does the next ship. Please do the Polaris next.
I'm not going to spoil because I know which one he's doing it, but it's going to be good.
Is it an RSI ship?
I'm not going to spoil it, but it's going to be good, and the timing is going to be good. And then if you don't know about Star Jump, Ender was here in chat. Grim comes in and joins us as well. But if you don't know about Star Jump, if you're not in their Discord, if you don't follow them on Twitch or watch their YouTube videos, holy moly, you're missing out. The videos they make are great. The Hanger Link app that Starlit put out is fantastic, and they're working on. Do you remember what the name of their Fleet Viewer is? Yeah. Is it just Fleet Viewer?
It's Star Jump Fleet Viewer, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
so
it is my favorite Star Citizen app that's not released. It is so good.
Oh, I can't not wait. I can't wait to play around with that. It's what they've shown us so far is just really incredible, and we're glad to have them a part of our following here on for Pathfinders. But we're big fans of their work as well.
Absolutely,
They do an amazing job.
All right, and that's all we have for this week.
That's all we have for this week's episode.
All right.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
Everybody, thanks for joining us. I'm going to go have dessert.
I'm actually, for everyone here on Twitch, I'm actually going to shut down and come right back. So because today is one of my normal streaming days, we're gonna finish out and we're gonna go till about 5, possibly 6 hours of streaming. So we've got about 2.5 done so far. So we'll be back and we'll probably be playing some Shipbreaker after that, and possibly some other stuff. Depends on how I feel. So we're gonna shut down the stream, and I'll be right back. And Tree, you have a good dessert.
Thank you much. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone, and as always, be kind.